of war games.
It's about learning and understanding vulnerabilities, strengths, and helps you go forward and figure out how to adjust and what you might need. So when you go into this event, I hope they're looking at it in the same way. With regard to the munitions piece,
another senior Pentagon official responsible for the Indo-Pacific region talked in a congressional hearing yesterday about a key area of focus.
I will say that invasion is neither imminent nor inevitable. And the work that we are doing in the department every single day is to focus on deterrence. And we do that by increasing our lethality, our posture, and our readiness.
But Aquilino told lawmakers the Pentagon and industry need to move more quickly to limit the odds of war over Taiwan.
it doesn't matter what the timeline is. The Secretary can give me this mission today. So I'm responsible to prevent this conflict today. And if deterrence were to fail, to be able to fight and win.
That's why some are calling for moving heaven and earth to enhance deterrence and denial. So Chinese leaders conclude, Jillian, they cannot do it.
Mike Emanuel, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Well, let's bring in Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin. He's the chairman of the Select Committee on China, also a member of the Intelligence and Armed Services Committee, as well as a U.S. Marine veteran. Sir, I think, the biggest question on American minds when it comes to this is, what is the U.S. military prepared to do should this scenario unfold? Should China launch some kind of an invasion on Taiwan?
Well, the goal, of course, is to deter China from launching the invasion. One of the obvious lessons from the failure of deterrence in Ukraine is that when it breaks down, it's very costly in terms of lives and blood and treasure. And so we are conducting this war game in order to prevent a war. I think members of the committee, Republicans and Democrats, are committed to peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. But peace can only be achieved through strength, and particularly since Xi Jinping appears to be preparing his country for war. I'm sure he'd prefer to have conquest without war. We need to be ready, and we are not moving fast enough. So tonight, we hope to learn what we can do in a bipartisan fashion to enhance deterrence so the Pentagon never has to face that choice.
Well, President Biden's top military advisors, General Milley and General Austin, both recently said, in their own ways, that they think it's time to tone the rhetoric down when it comes to the possibility of an imminent invasion. Are you concerned that these war games are at odds with that guidance?
I'm not. In fact, I think we do ourselves no favors by minimizing the scope and scale of the challenge we face. And every time Secretary Austin or General Milley goes out there and says, well, it's unlikely that Xi Jinping is going to do this in the next few years, I actually think that undermines our ability to force industry to do things like start building the long-range precision fires we need to surge west of the international date line. And so the most important thing we need to do is talk with clarity about this problem so that we can galvanize actual action. If we're so afraid of provoking the Chinese, the thing we fail to realize is that weakness and hesitation is itself provocative.
And the stakes are very high, as you well know. Sir, take a look at this out in the Hill today, an opinion piece. While many have gamed how a conflict might materialize on the battlefield, surveying the disastrous impacts to the homeland and the masses within it is not widely known. This includes the food we buy, the cars we drive, the prescriptions we take, and the energy we use. All of this, clearly, Congressman, a threat to U.S. national interests. Are these war games going to touch on these risk factors as well?
We're very much hoping to incorporate the economic and energy component into the war game tonight, which is something we rarely do. From a defense perspective, we tend to focus solely on the hard power aspect when we know that the Chinese Communist Party is likely to weaponize pharmaceutical supply chains, for example. They've actually threatened to do that in the past. And I think what that will reveal is the fact that we're just unacceptably dependent upon China economically. We need to take some steps to reclaim our economic independence so that in the event of a conflict, they're not cutting off the export of life-saving drugs. That's part of what we're trying to do on the Select Committee on China.
Where do you see Congress's biggest potential role here, the biggest contribution that you and your colleagues might make?
In the short term, I think we can figure out a way to draw down the backlog of weapons that Taiwan has purchased, but we haven't delivered. There's $19 billion worth of weapons that haven't been delivered. It's not going to happen overnight, but the more we talk about it, the more we put pressure on the department, the more we can fix that. The second thing I think we can do by changing the way we buy weapons and allocate money for Pentagon to buy critical munitions is start to refill our stockpiles of key things that are just severely depleted right now. Hard power will help us deter war.
Last question for you, sir. You were part of the delegation that met with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis when he was in Washington yesterday, paving the way for a 2024 presidential run. Are you any closer to endorsing him?
Well, I really enjoyed the governor's remarks. I think he's done a great job in Florida, and my goal is to talk with the 2024 prospective candidates about how we beat the Chinese Communist Party in what I believe to be an existential competition. So I'm glad he came here. I thought it was a very productive discussion. I'm going to focus on the committee's work, and I'll leave the 2024 presidential politics to people that are smarter on that stuff.
All right. Well, thanks for taking time with us. We hope you'll come back after the War Games to let us know what lessons you learned from them. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.